And of course, I immediately fell behind with my weekly training videos. I don't think anyone is surprised. But we're back on track. This week, I want to talk about D for dominance, or specifically dominance theory. So, I'm quite guilty with this one of assuming that everyone knows the same information I know with dominance theory. Um, but it's actually not that common for people to know the true backstory of where dominance theory comes from and why it's such a popular thing. There's a lot of widely held misconceptions with dominance theory, so let's have a bit of a dive into the facts of what is dominance, where does it come from, and why is it so pervasive when it comes to dog training. So let's look at the context for dominance theory. The modern concept is that your dog views your family as a wolf pack. Your dog is in a pack, and the dog desires to be the leader of that pack or the top dog, and you have to be the top dog instead. That's basically what dominance theory is. And it's a pile of garbage, honestly. But it's based on a study that was conducted in the 1930s and the 1940s by a Swiss scientist, Rudolf Schenkel. So that's nearly 100 years old, the research. And what Schenkel did was he took a number of adolescent and young adult wolves from different packs and he studied them in captivity in a zoo. And what he saw was that the wolves fought for resources. They fought until there was one wolf that was the leader, that was the top dog, and that wolf controlled the other wolves through aggressive behaviour. He had access to the best of the resources, he controlled the access of the other dogs to the resources, and he was labelled the alpha wolf, the top wolf. The thing is, the study was garbage. Schenkel had a group of unrelated wolves that had never met that were forced into captivity in a limited space with limited resources. So what he was actually observing was not an accurate portrayal of how these animals behave. It was a group of terrified adolescent wolves fighting for resources in a confined space. And I think we can all appreciate why that wouldn't be accurate when it comes to studying behaviour. Schenkel himself debunked this work a few years later, but unfortunately the damage was already done. Subsequent research has shown us that wolf packs are structured more like family units. You've got your adult wolves and their offspring in a typical wolf pack. And then as the young wolves grow up, they leave the pack, they go and find other packs of their own, and the cycle progresses. And even within that, dogs are not wolves. Feral packs of dogs are structured differently again. They're even more loose. So research into feral colonies of dogs shows that it's a combination of family units, but also really loosely structured peer groups. So it'll be dogs of a similar age, varying sizes of groups as well, bands of small or large groups of dogs, and they'll come together depending on the availability of resources and the amount of space that they have. They might come together, they might socialise and play, they might hunt together or scavenge together, and then they'll go about their business separately as well. You do see more aggressive behaviour creeping in when resources are limited, or when there's external stress to the pack. But a pack of dogs does not have one single leader. A pack isn't a solid structure. The dogs come and go freely. So you'll see differences between wolves and feral dogs, and you'll see differences between feral dogs and pet dogs. Because our pet dogs can't have this loose structure. Our pet dogs are in our house with our family, and they've got no choice. They can't come and go as they please. So you might look at your own dogs as well and think, oh, I have multiple dogs and this one is the leader, this one is the top dog. Or you might see yourself as the leader or the top dog. But what you're actually seeing a lot of the time is a spectrum of behaviour where you might have a dog that is consistently seen as being in charge in certain situations, but if you watch closely, there's a constant dialogue between your dogs. And usually the dog who's most experienced or most confident will be in control of the situation, but that will vary depending on what the situation is, depending on if there are humans around or not, depending on what resources are available. So there's a constant communication going on rather than one dog being in charge and beating up all the other dogs. And dominant behaviour does exist, but in the context of a single behaviour. Dominance is not a personality trait, so you can't have a dominant dog. And quite often I do find that people label their dogs as dominant, but usually if someone says to me, oh, I've got a very dominant dog, and then you analyse the behaviour, that dog is actually either very insecure or anxious, and they feel the need to act loud and scary and be perceived as dominant in order to control resources or to create space around themselves. So why am I telling you this? Why is this important? Well, the reason it's important is that viewing yourself as a pack leader is detrimental to your relationship with your dog. If you feel that you need to be the boss and you need to be the leader all the time, you are placing unfair expectations on yourself and on your dog, and you might be placing them in stressful situations as well. Apart from anything else, if you feel that you need to be dominant towards your dog and you act aggressively towards them, you might actually push them further and escalate their behaviour instead of trying to understand their behaviour and fix it. So your dog growls at you, you get mad and shout at him. The next time, instead of growling, he bites you. That's the kind of escalation that we're trying to avoid. And I think it's important to bear in mind that your dog is not trying to gain status with their behaviour. They're not trying to gain power and control when they behave in specific ways. And if you view those behaviours as dominant, you're more likely to take them personally, which will then prevent you from actually analysing the problem, analysing the behaviour and getting to the root of it. And also, your dog knows that you are not a dog. He knows that he is not the same as you and he doesn't communicate the same way that you do. Studies suggest that our dogs understand us better than we understand them. They communicate with us in ways that we can understand. We don't always understand the communication from them. But the thing is, your dog doesn't mind that you're not a dog. He doesn't care that you're not the same. So if you view him instead as a member of your family and you view your role as guidance and it's your job to understand his behaviour and direct it appropriately, then you remove the need for this harshness, this need to be dominant and be in control. And that way you end up, the end result is a happier and healthier relationship with your dog that is based on mutual trust and communication instead of outdated practices and fear.